Good morning, and good morning to Senate Finance. We're here, it's another day. And lots of bright and shiny faces. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll over there? Thank you.
Senator Goycochea, Senator Harris, Senator Lang, Senator Neal, Senator Wynn, Senator Severs-Gansert, Senator Titus, and Chair Dondera Loop.
Here, and I believe we are all present and accounted for, so yay. All right, just as a reminder, please silence your cell phones. The call-in number, if you're listening for public comment or testimony on a bill, 888-475-4499. And when prompted, the meeting ID for today will be 880-6793-5508, and then press pound, and when prompted for the participant ID, please press pound. This is also listed on the agenda online if you need the number again. Today we have several bills to listen to, and we're going to start with Senate Bill 126, and then we will have Senator Spearman Day for a minute. So we'll start with Senator Neal, and when you're ready, Senator Neal, please go ahead.
Good morning, Senate Committee on Finance. I am Senator Dina Neal here representing Senate District 4. This particular bill has a general fund impact. It's a program that's been in existence since 2015. The fiscal note, or the impact on the general fund, if you look in section 2, it has fiscal year 23-24 for $950,000, and then for fiscal year 24-25, $950,000. So this program started out as a pilot in 2015, where we had $350,000 that was spent over 2 years. Then we went up to $450,000 that was spent over 2 years from 2017 to the present. So the program has grown exponentially from 53 businesses to over 700 businesses, and now 17 part-time staff persons. We now have counselors who speak 5 different languages to help and assist clients. And so this fiscal note represents the growth and also the add-on of the I can't even think of their name. There's a UNR cooperative extension, which is going to now come in and try to add some counseling. And then on top of that, we added one more chamber, which is the African Chamber of Commerce. We have maintained several commerce chambers of who come in and are marketing tools for the program, and they have been a part of the program since the beginning. We just keep adding. So we have Asian, we have the Asian Development Council, the Asian Chamber, African Chamber, Latin Chamber, Urban Chamber, and so that is pretty much what the bill does. It continues and it helps the program to continue to expand.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Senator Neal, could you just speak quickly to the fiscal note on this?
So the fiscal note that is attached to the bill from the INSHE is 0.
Okay.
The appropriation is really what's going on in the bill, which is in section 2.
Thank you very much. I just needed that clarification. Thank you. Any questions on this particular bill? All right. Seeing none, then we'll go to those in support of Senate Bill 126. Good morning, Ms. Bray. I think you get the award for having the appointments that I have had to unfortunately cancel the most. So it's a pleasure to see you here.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of Senate Finance. My name is Sheila Bray with the University of Nevada, Reno. We'd like to support Senate Bill 126. I also represent Cooperative Extension, and that does work throughout the state, and I'm based in Las Vegas. And one of the things that we do down there throughout the state is help small businesses with existing and encouraging and enhancing education for them. So this bill, we really look forward to partnering with the senator and the Nevada Grow program to grow that out. Also written in here is utilizing existing resources through our Small Business Development Center, which is based out of UNR, but collaborates with UNLV down south. So this really is packaging some of the small business existing resources we have and really expanding them out to further business development. So we encourage your support.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in support here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, please, BPS.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer testimony in support of SB 126, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer support at this time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone in opposition? In Carson City, in Las Vegas, on the phone lines, BPS when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer opposition testimony to SB 126, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to neutral here in Carson City, in Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, BPS when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer neutral testimony to SB 126, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer neutral testimony.
Thank you very much. And with that, closing remarks, Senator New? All righty. Thank you very much, and thank you for being ready and here this morning. And with that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 126, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 278, and welcome Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Tendero Loop, and members of the committee. For the record, I am State Senator Pat Spearman. I represent Senate District 1 in Clark County. And Madam Chair, I spent the night here last night, so I wouldn't be late, but anyway.
There is something very wrong with that whole story, Senator. I hope that you understand why we rolled these bills, but we appreciate you holding the seat all night long. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, thank you. Excuse me. I'm happy to be here today to present Senate Bill 278, which creates a tax credit program against the modified business tax for employers who pay money to the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services of the Department of Health and Human Services. This is for the purpose of providing child care assistance to certain employees. The bill defines criteria of eligibility for participation in the tax credit program for the employee and child care provider, such that employees must not earn more than 150% of the median household income in the state in order to be eligible for the program. I would note that the fiscal impact prepared by the Nevada's Department of Taxation reflects a need for 2 new positions. One is a tax examiner to receive and track requests to ensure appropriate tax credit is issued, and issue correspondence to employees regarding the tax program, a supervisor to oversee the addition of this tax credit, and these 2 positions total $125,000 for the fiscal year 23-24 and $165,000 for 24-25. But I would also like to say that part of the getting the information out to employers, some of that can be accomplished using social media, which most businesses do now anyway, and also PSAs on television, radio, and other areas, because What childcare is, it is part of a core infrastructure, especially as we come back from COVID. If we don't have that in place, then it will be very difficult for parents who want to work to be able to work. And I've talked to some parents who, in essence, have to choose between going to work or going to jail because they have children who are so small they can't leave them by themselves, but they also cannot afford, if they have 2 or 3 children, and the average cost is about $800 to $1,000 a month per child, you're talking about a significant amount. So that's really what this bill does. I'd like to thank you for considering this and hope that the consideration will be positive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Any questions for the senator on Senate Bill 278? I'll give you just a minute to peruse the information. There are no amendments on this bill, are there? Thank you.
No, ma'am.
Senator, could you confirm what the fiscal note is on this?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Senator Spearman, Senate District 1, for the record. So the first fiscal note is for the personnel services, operating expenses, et cetera. This is to provide funding for the Tax Examiner 2, and that is, as I stated before, $125,000. Let me get the other. And some change per year, and $125,078 for fiscal year 23-24, and then $165,000 for fiscal year 2025. There is also a budgetary impact in the loss could be up to, according to the Department of Taxation, $5 million, realizing 24 and 5.5 and 25. But again, I'd like to say that child care is part of a core infrastructure, and I have here an article, and I can leave it with the secretary, but it's several articles have been done regarding the importance of child care and what it looks like in terms of expanding our economy. So for every $1 that we put into affordable child care, conceivably, we could reap more than $10, because one of the things that happens when parents are able to go to work is it brings down the pressure on a lot of our social service operations. So you have parents that go to work. Now you don't have parents that are having to apply for just to exist, don't have to apply for social services. Here's the research from Early Childhood Quarterly, and it's about 25 pages, and I can leave it with you. But the essence of it talks about the importance of making sure that we do everything, states and the federal government do everything that we can to address the issue of child care in our society. And let me say this, Madam Chair. You know, one of the things that I don't hear it as much as I used to, but as we began to open up after COVID, I used to hear people say, well, you know, people are so lazy, they'd rather stay at home and collect the check. And I'm like, that's not true. Maybe they're, a small percentage, but a lot of these people are good, honest, hardworking folks, and they had somebody to take care of their children before COVID hit. And some of the people that they relied on to take care of their children, unfortunately, are deceased because of COVID. And some of the child care agencies didn't last past COVID. So I consider this an investment.
Thank you very much. I believe Senator Wynn has a question.
Thank you, Senator Spearman, for bringing this bill. I know childcare is right up there with affordable housing and other things that are that prohibit us from getting back to a full economy, for sure. I have a question when it comes down to Section 3, and we're talking about Section 3, subsection 3, that talks about have a household income that does not exceed 150% of the median household income of the state. What is that actual number, if you know?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and I did. I said she's going to ask me that.
I don't know if Mr. Thorley or Ms. Crockett might have an answer for that as well. I'm not sure. I'm just curious on what that dollar amount is and who this impacts.
So, Senator Nguyen, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Nguyen, one of the things that happened during the policy hearing was that we wanted to make sure that we included more people, and so that 150% includes a lot more people than just 125.
Thank you. And then I guess my next question is typically with these tax credits, we have a way to see what that return on investment, that ROI is. Is there any, and I apologize that I don't know, is there a mechanism to find out? I'm imagining you would determine that there wouldn't be necessarily a number that you can quantify, but do you anticipate how many children might be how many children or how many families, or how you would quantify the success of this tax credit?
So there's not, I don't have a specific way to quantify it, but one of the things that we've noticed coming back from COVID is there are some people, because of the child care issue, have simply dropped out of looking for work because it's just impossible. What I would say is that we might be able to look at that from the standpoint of how DHHS administers the program and see how many people actually apply for, how many people are eligible. And the other thing that I think we might be able to do is from a state taxing standpoint or economic growth standpoint is let's look at the receipts. Let's look at the cash flow that's now in the economy. Let's look at the number of people who are decreased from relying on social services. And so those are some of the ways that I think we might be able to do that.
And Chair, may I ask another follow-up question? And this may be a question for some from DHHS. I don't know if there's someone here that might be able to answer that question on if there is a way to quantify those numbers and report back to the legislature on how many, I guess, children were potentially served. And I see Carissa coming up here.
Good morning, Senators. Carissa Loper Machado, Agency Manager from the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services, for the record. So we can work with the businesses taking advantage of this tax credit as well as the Department of Taxation to come up with usage of the program and be able to separate that from our federally funded program and who is being served above 85% of SMI through the 150% of state median income.
Do you happen to know what that 150% of the median income number is? Nope.
On a brief Google, I just did, so don't take this as financial fact. I think it would run about $93,000 per year.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And then I guess my, that currently isn't prescribed in this bill, though, like that reporting mechanism or that collection of data mechanism.
Not to my knowledge, Carissa Loper, for the record.
But is it something that you routinely would it be easy for you to collect that information?
Carissa Loper, for the record, I think it will be relatively easy for us to collect the information, especially if we have a year to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Spearman, for bringing this bill forward. I do think it is helpful, but my questions are, how do the potential employees know of this ability? So logistics-wise, the employer pays the taxes, and then they say, hey, and then the payment goes directly to the child care. None of this goes to the employee directly. It's always, they pay their taxes first, and then they signal that it needs to be paid to this child care place. Logistics.
Thank you, Senator Spearman, for the record. And One of the things that was in the, if it's in the bill as part of the fiscal note, is getting that information out to the employers, so the money does not go directly to the employees. But what can happen, and I don't know if you were here in 15, but Senator Farley had a bill, and I had a bill just like it, and I pulled mine to support hers, but this is very similar to that bill where the employers would get the benefit of the MBT for doing the child care, either voucher or providing it on site. So that's the way it happened. And it's the employer's responsibility really to make sure that the employees know about this, much like they would an EAP program, much like they would an expansion in their insurance that included a free membership to the Y or something like that.
Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal, if you'll hang on to that question just 1 minute, Mr. Thorley has a clarifying piece of information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Ultimately, it would be on the Department of Taxation who would be responsible for administering this program to determine the amount, the source that would be used, because it's not identified in the bill. For the 150% of the median household income in Nevada. However, looking at the U.S. Census Bureau, the most recent information that's available, the median household income in Nevada is $65,686 a year. So 150% of that is $98,529.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to, since this came from Senate Revenue, the way that the tax works, it basically the employer will pay the child care and then get the credit to offset those costs. So it will go directly to the child care agency, because that's the only way that this would make sense. Now, the mechanics of how that will work will have to be done in reg in terms of whether or not the employee will then submit, or there will be some kind of application process that the employer sets up saying that, you know, this category of employee is eligible to get their child care offset, but it's really up to the business to volunteer to be in the program. So it may not be every business.
Thank you very much. Would it be if the employer is responsible for getting the payment and setting this up, I would assume that there may be some cost then to some of the employers.
Senator Spearman, for the record, there may be, but I have not heard from anyone saying that that's going to be exorbitant. The cost that to set it up is probably something that can be absorbed in their HR department, how they do that and how they promulgate other programs within the company, because every company is different.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Senator Titus, one more. Go ahead.
I appreciate that, because the questions that were just asked brought up another thought. If you get Senator Neal mentioned that the employer has to pay that and then apply for the credits. I know on your federal income tax you can get a deduction for childcare, and I'm just wondering if that interferes with that. If it's either or, so if the employer is doing this deduction, then obviously the family can't do the deduction on their federal income tax, and then how's that work for the employer? Will they be able to then deduct that not only from this but from a federal tax side?
We would have to find the answer to that question, I think. But if you'll hang tight for just a minute, Senator Gansert has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thank you for bringing the bill, because I think childcare is a huge obstacle, and this is a nice way to incentivize companies to provide that. And I think the answer is probably yes, because an expense is an expense is an expense. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I also think it's important to note that, one of the credit, the MBT credit is only up to 50%. But it's also relevant to note that other businesses have currently taken credit on the MBT in Nevada. So whatever business participates in this is going to, be walking into this with eyes wide open because they probably have participated in other tax credit programs. And I also, when we had this in Senate Revenue, middle class families that are not poor who are already eligible for a child care subsidy, this would try to go after that group of families that don't have any relief, which was a common story that we heard before the pandemic, where they couldn't offset a cost of $3,000 a month in order to send their kid to childcare. Like that was an extreme burden. And now this may be an option for them to pursue if their employer seeks this program.
And Madam Chair, just to piggyback on that, that was one of the things that we looked at in terms of looking at the 125 or 150%, because there's some people that were right there in the middle that would not qualify but would need it.
Right. I can think of many teachers that would be in the middle. Okay, alrighty. Seeing no more questions, thank you, Senator. And we'll go to those in support of Senate Bill 278 here in Carson City.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. I'm here on behalf of the Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce and the Children's Cabinet. Just want to come to the table and say we need child care opportunities for everybody across the board, so we very much support this legislation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Elise Monroy Marsala on behalf of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. We are in support of this measure, but I just had some more numbers to provide just to contextualize the need. So based on a cost of living report, a family of four in Nevada must spend $57,720 a year just to provide basics, and that doesn't include child care. For a family of four, this would so $57,000 a year just for basics. We've also learned this session during the welfare budget, actually it was really interesting, that infants' childcare is $800 a week for an infant childcare. So that's $41,000-ish a year. So childcare is incredibly expensive, and in order to have a sustainable and strong economy, we need to have sustainable and strong families. So the Children's Advocacy Alliance is in strong support of this measure, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a way to start the day, huh? Any additional support here in Carson City? Las Vegas? We'll go to the phone lines, BPS, when you're ready.
To testify in support of Senate Bill 278, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press *6 to unmute.
Good morning, Chair, and the beautiful committee. Thank you to the sponsor of the bill, Senator Spearman. This is Dora Martinez with the Nevada Disability Action Coalition. I really ditto what she said. As a blind mom, 15 years ago, I had to go through children's services to get child care for my daughter when she was 1, which helped me not apply for the social program, and this is really helpful and would enhance the economic in the state. Thank you, and good morning to you all. Thank you.
Good morning, Dora. Thank you. All right, anybody else online, BPS?
Chair, there are no more callers to give testimony.
Thank you very much, and we'll go to opposition here in Carson City. In Las Vegas? On the phone lines, BPS, when you're ready.
Chair, there are no additional callers to give testimony.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral here in Carson City. Las Vegas, on the phone lines, BPS when you're ready.
Chair, there are still no additional callers to give testimony.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Spearman, any closing remarks? Okay, with that, we will close the hearing on Senate Bill 278, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 279. Welcome, Senator Spearman. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. Loop, and committee members. For the record, I am still Senator Pat Spearman, representing Clark County, and I'm here today to present to you Senate Bill 279, which continues my ongoing work to ensure that our laws provide equal opportunities for every citizen in the state. Specifically, the issue before you today relates to recognizing and fostering the employment of persons with disabilities. The bill establishes Nevada as a model employer program, and the nickname that I gave it was the state as a model employer, and so that's same. It's kind of modeled after Tennessee that they did a few years back. So the bill would retain persons with disabilities. It would also cast a wide net to make sure that people who are qualified are not disqualified because of their disabilities. It also requires the Division of Human Resource Management to work with the Rehabilitation Division of the Department of Employment and Training, Rehabilitation or DETR, to provide technical assistance in such endeavors. To comply with this bill, the Division of Human Resource Management projects that it will require one additional person to carry out the new provisions of Senate Bill 279. The position is approximately $160,000 across the upcoming biennium, along with various travel and operating costs to carry out the training efforts and outreach to Nevada state agencies, an amount of $13,739. Fiscal year 23-24 and $6,500 fiscal year to 24-25. So a fiscal note prepared by DETR determined there's no fiscal impact on the department. And Madam Chair, I would just like to say, as I look back, the ADA, Americans Disability Act, was established in 1990. And in that establishment, it required everyone, to include states, to prepare a program that addressed the issues that 279 does. So I'm not sure what they're doing right now, the state is doing right now, but I know that most of what is contained in their fiscal note, they should already be doing. So.
Okay. With that, question, Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you, so what goes into the model employer program that is being managed by the Division of Human Resources? What are the points that they are going to look at and look for?
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to Senator Neal. And so the things that they would be looking for specifically are those things that are contained in the ADA. Do we have a program already that people within the departments or within the state or in HR, do we have a program already that addresses people with disabilities? Do we have a program already that looks at how our offices, how our office space is configured? So it's nothing different than what's going on in the federal ADA. The only thing that this bill does is it requires us to be very intentional about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in the Division of Human Resources fiscal note, they add that Section 3 will require training efforts and outreach to Nevada state agencies, which will necessitate the purchase of training materials statewide. So can we talk to the Division of Human Resource Management and get an understanding on what they're already doing around ADA?
Good morning. Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director for the Department of Administration, where DHRM is. I also have Mandy Bosmith with me here, who's the DHRM Administrator. So, like the Senator described, currently our practices are very reactive. They're not proactive in working with supervisors, working with departments and other departments and divisions. So, what's required right now for ADA compliance is that all supervisors, if an employee supervises other employees, they're required in their mandatory trainings to take a mandatory training. It's offered electronically through the e-learn system on ADA and accommodation requests. As agencies are going through the recruitment process, they have to fill out the essential functions for any position, and they have to tie any of the cognitive or physical abilities of that position to one of those essential functions through worksheets that DHRM provides. These are very again, they're very reactionary in the sense that we don't go out and train people proactively throughout other departments and agencies. If they request that guidance, then we certainly will accommodate that as we're going through a recruiting process. If there is a candidate who requests accommodations for a position, then DHRM will work with them to figure out if those accommodations can be met. But again, it's very reactionary. We look at this legislation as the creation of a program where we're going to have a trainer proactively going out and scheduling time with all of the other departments and agencies within the state and actively working with supervisors and working with senior leadership on establishing what their proactive engagement on recruiting candidates with disabilities would be. And so we look at this as a function very much more that would require time and effort of the agency or of DHRM, and probably require some time and agency of supervisors and senior leadership at other departments.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What would be the equipment? So you have equipment at $7,297 for 23-24. So what equipment are you going to need? Because it sounds like you have the in-state travel, but some of this it sounds like you're doing more PowerPoints and going and discussing.
Yes, so Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director for the record. So that equipment, most of that is based off of the one-time equipment when you're adding an FTE. So you need to purchase a desk, you need to purchase a chair, you need to purchase a computer. And so that's the one-time investment when you're adding an FTE to a department or to a division.
Thank you. And I kind of I was thinking about that that we have Opportunity Village, for example, work at the airport. So is there somebody trained that works with those people that we have hired to do those jobs at the airport? Is there a specific person that's hired to do that, or how does that work? I mean, it's a pretty good model to me that's already in place, and they seem to do a good job at that.
Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director, Department of Administration for the record. So there's no focus of any one individual, either at DHRM or necessarily at most departments. I think the closest that you have on that dedicated effort is probably in DETR with the 700-hour program, where they're focused on getting folks with disabilities put into the system where they can be assigned and put into a position as agencies are going through recruitment. But that doesn't exist at the Department of Administration currently or at DHRM for that exclusive focus. And so that's where we would look at this legislation as really requiring DHRM to have some exclusive focus on this and pay attention to that, where the addition of this staffer would be to focus on those activities.
Thank you very much. Did you want to add a comment or no?
For the record, Mandy Bosmith, I serve as the administrator for the Division of Human Resource Management in the Department of Administration. I would just add that we are looking at SB 279 as an opportunity for us to work with the Department of Employment Rehabilitation or Training and Rehabilitation to improve the function of that 700-hour list for bringing in individuals who are on that list into state employment. One of the things that we don't do in terms of DHRM or in terms of DETR with respect to that particular list is we don't offer ongoing support to the employee or to the agency that brings on that employee. I would liken it to sort of a 504 plan that a child has in school where they may need additional resources or help, and we can outline what those are, and then we can provide support to agencies and to that employee. What we see this as is an opportunity for us to work with DETR and to work within the legislation to build this program as put forward by Senator Spearman so that we can become what, the model employer that this describes. Thank you.
Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I wanted to ask you about that. So, in the VOC rehab program that currently exists in DETR that deals with disabilities and then allows, focuses on allowing folks who want to work and creating, I guess, supports in order for them to go to work, and then it ties them to employers. What do you expect to be the crossover, and why can't their existing trainer be cross-referenced into your agency? Because they should have several people working on disabilities who are engaged in trying to assist employers to understand what they need to do to accommodate those folks. So why isn't their FTE going to be just shared?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair Dondera-Loop, to Senator Neal, Mandy Bowe-Smith, Administrator of the DHRM, for the record. The vocational rehabilitation programs that are run by DETR currently really focus on more outside employment, not specifically on state employment, so coming to work for the state. And what our focus is in terms of the language in the bill and why we put the fiscal note on is because we're looking at building this program to bring people into state employment in particular. So DETR's programs do support, for example, Job Connect. They do have caseworkers or specialists. I'm sorry, I don't remember the job title off the top of my head, but they do have specialists that support folks that they place in outside employers over the course of the time they're employed there. We specifically within DHRM don't have that program, and that, as Deputy Director Tuma stated, we're looking at this as an opportunity to build that program specifically for people coming into state employment.
Okay, thank you very much. Any additional questions from the committee?
Madam Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Spearman, for the record. Yeah, and I just want to address a couple of things. 1990, the ADA came about, and we as a state require employers to do what I'm saying that the state should be doing. And so this bill really is about, let's not just talk right and walk left, let's talk right and walk right. And so 23 years after the ADA, what this bill is trying to do is to say to the state, Title II of the ADA matters. And so instead of being reactionary, we should have been proactive when the ADA was first published. And this is not a criticism of you all. I'm just saying, as a state, we have not done what we should be doing. And there are people who have disabilities who can work in several of the jobs and that they're advertising for, but unless we are intentional about it, it doesn't happen.
Thank you very much. All right, seeing no more questions, we will ask you to step back and we'll go to support for Senate Bill 279 here in Carson City. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, here representing the State of Nevada Association of Providers. Our organization is an umbrella organization for providers who have group homes or, as we call them, supported living arrangements and jobs and day training facilities for the intellectually and developmentally disabled. And Opportunity Village is a member of SNAP. We're in full support of this bill. When we don't hire our disabled, we miss out on a lot of Nevada talent. So we're in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any more support here in Carson City? Las Vegas, please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Stephen Cohen for the record. Stephen with a V. Cohen as in the Assemblywoman, no known relation. Ditto, the only correction I would make to the Senator's remarks is it's actually Title I of the ADA that addresses employment discrimination. Thank you, and I yield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen, and thank you for being with us today. All right, seeing no one else in Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer support testimony of SB 279, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Catherine Nielsen. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'll start with working-aged people with developmental and other disabilities are among the most unemployed and underemployed segments of our society. Too often, unemployment is accepted as an inevitable result of living with a significant disability. Employment is the avenue to independence and increased socialization for individuals with disabilities. Our council believes that all individuals with disabilities who can and want to work should have access to the resources and supports necessary to gain and maintain meaningful community-based employment. The state of Nevada currently employs more than 18,000 employees, and the state of Nevada as an employer has its duty to its citizens to employ people of all abilities and should be considered a model employer. We also encourage you to implement employment first policies that transform the expectations of state agencies, service providers, and people with developmental disabilities. The expectation is that people with developmental or other disabilities can and want to work, and a successful outcome in finding these individuals meaningful and gainful employment that meets their needs and interests by tailoring services to help them succeed in the workforce. And I will add that we worked with DHRM and their 700-hour list. Previously, there was a list of exempt positions that people with disabilities could not apply for if they were on the 700-hour list. And I do want to applaud DHRM for eliminating that list, as there should not be any exempt positions. So thank you, Senator Spearman and the committee.
Next caller, please.
There are no further callers to testify at this time.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go to opposition here in Carson City. Opposition in Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, BPS, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer opposition testimony to SB 279, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral here in Carson City. In Las Vegas, seeing none, BPS, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer neutral testimony for SB 279, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. And with that, Senator Spearman, any closing remarks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Spearman, Senate District 1, not necessarily closing remarks, but I wanted to be here for the next bill. But I will say, this, I had a mantra when I was in the military: you can't teach what you don't know, and you can't lead where you won't go. And so for the state to enforce the ADA, we must model that. We must model that, because everyone who wants to work, is qualified to do the job, should have an opportunity to do that. So that's all.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, I will close the hearing on Senate Bill 279. And if you'll pause just for a minute, Senator Spearman, Mr. Thorley has a correction on the record for Senate Bill 278.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division. Just wanted to make a clarification on the record regarding the cost of child care. So when the Division of Welfare and Supportive Services presented their budget to the subcommittee, the Human Services Subcommittee on March 3rd, they indicated in response to a question that the cost of child care in Nevada for families can range from $800 to $1,000 per week for infant care, and $600 per week for toddlers, and $400 per week for pre-kindergarten and after-school care. After that subcommittee hearing, the division reached out to us in a memo that was subsequently forwarded to everyone on the subcommittee, indicating that they misspoke, and those are approximate costs for Nevada families per month, not per week. And so the correct numbers are $800 to $1,000 per month for infant care, $600 per month for toddlers, and $400 per month for pre-kindergarten and after-school care.
Thank you very much. Still expensive. Okey doke. With that, we will go to Senate Bill 307, and please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I am State Senator Pat Spearman, and I'm here today to hand it off to Nick to present 307. Some of you that were here in 2017 may remember a bill that I sponsored related to incarceration and putting people, quote, in the hole. That bill was pretty good, but there are some areas that needed to be tightened up. And so what 307 does is it tightens up those areas. And I would also like to say at the onset that we've worked with Director Zrinda, and the fiscal note is no longer so.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. My name is Nick Shepak, S-H-E-P-A-C-K. I presented this bill in my capacity as the Board Director of Return Strong and a steering committee member of Social Workers Against Solitary Confinement. And since this is a money committee, we won't go into the deep details of the policy. I'll just let the committee know that we worked with the director and presented this bill as currently amended. We presented a conceptual amendment during the first Senate hearing. At the time, the original bill did have a fiscal note on it. By working with the director, we were able to get that fiscal note down to 0. That bill passed unanimously out of that committee. We didn't have time in between the presentation and getting the reprint to have that note removed in time to not have it come before you today. There is a small amendment that fixes a few things that we needed to fix from the reprint, and so I'll briefly go over that. First, Amendment 1 in Section 7. We went back and forth with drafting on how to define serious mental illness. We didn't have a solid definition in the NRS that we could just point to. So we came up with something, and then after talks with the director, it was the desire of the department to move towards a definition that mirrors the definition used by the Department of Veteran Affairs. That was fine with stakeholders, so we've added that in the amendment. And then the second amendment, this one does apply to the fiscal note. In section 12.5, sub 7, and I need to fix this, it is B, not A. It's replacing the word psychologist with mental health clinician. The department only has a few psychologists on staff, and it is very difficult for them to obtain them in the rurals such as Ely, but they do have qualified mental health clinicians on staff that could sit on these multidisciplinary teams and would be no additional cost to the state. So really where we are with this piece of legislation, it is a policy question and not a fiscal question at this point, because the department can achieve all the goals of the policy without any cost to the state. With that, I'd be very happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from the committee on Senate Bill 307? Senator Gokachia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And of course, the prison in
in Ely, and I haven't been there in years now, but at one point it had, I believe there were 21 solitary cells.
We're really glad you haven't been there for years, Senator.
I never was incarcerated. Just
Sorry for the interruption, but it was too good of a point.
I know you couldn't pass it, but anyway, now, and again, typically, although they were out, I think an hour a day at that time, they were out in the exercise yard. But I was just kind of curious about the status of those. Typically, that was also where death row was, and some of those inmates at that time that were incarcerated there, were a risk to other inmates in the population. So how will that work with this? Will they be required then every 15 days to vacate those?
Nick Shepak for the record. We do have the director of the Department of Corrections here who helped draft this language, and he can speak better to the specifics of how many people are in Ely, exactly how they would approach this than I would.
Welcome, Director.
Good morning, Chair Dundera Loop and members of the committee. My name is James Zarenda, D-Z-U-R-E-N-D-A. I'm the Director for the Nevada Department of Corrections. To answer the Senator's question, there's more than 21 right now. And if you consider what would help clarify in this bill is what is solitary confinement? What's the difference between solitary confinement and segregation? We only use terms in the RARs as segregation, so it would compromise to say that this bill is related to anyone that is locked in their cells for more than 22 hours a day. We do have more than 21 segregation cells in Ely. Ely has really our state's segregation units, so they're out of their cells for less than 2 hours a day. What this bill would do is it doesn't necessarily mean that those that are homicidal or those that are extremely assaultive, that the behaviors have not changed. It still could keep them in longer than 15 days as long as they're removed from that status for at least 1 day to be under review of the committee. And the committee is designed to put more of mental health involved with the decision process. That was my real intent to see how the importance of this bill would be, is to those that have behavior problems that could be related to multiple things, whether it's behavior, PTSD, traumatic brain injury. We need to have more non-custody individuals involved with their behavior continuance, which is the mental health. Those that have the history of mental health in the files that can understand that there might be more than just what we're seeing. So really the intent of this would be is to get those that are locked in their cells for more than 22 hours a day, so at least every 15 days there's going to be a review of that individual, whether it should be continued, is there any other process that can be involved with not putting that person in segregation, and putting an individualized treatment plan on those individuals to say, what are we going to do next? And it also puts in there that we do not put somebody in that status that's within 90 days of being discharged in the community, because that's also dangerous. If we know there's a bad behavior problem and those people are in segregation or solitary confinement, that they're not released from that status right to the community, that we got to do something different in the prison system before they go back into our communities. So those, the condemned unit that you were mentioning, they are out more than 2 hours a day, so it would not be an affecting of them. It's just those that are locked in their cells 22 or more hours a day, if that helps.
Thank you, and I want you to notice I was paying attention when I was there on the tour. But really what the long and short of it then, this bill would, and I think it's great, would require then that you do an assessment every 2 weeks of those people that were in the segregated units and see if there's improvement or if you're losing ground. Appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. And you and I did many tours of prisons, so even the old Nevada State. So we saw those things in action, so thank you. Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the bill, section, and I think this is a typo, probably needs to be fixed before, if this bill passes, but section 12 you have section 12.3, and then you have section 12.5. There's no 12.4, but my question really would be about 12.4. There's a 4 there, but I think it actually is under 12.3. So in any case, number 4 under section 12.3 on page 4. You get the right. Okay. Well, there's no section 12.4, but in any case, on number 4 of 12.3/4, the department shall ensure that each offender placed in solitary confinement receives a health and welfare check conducted at least once a day by a provider of health care at his or her cell. So you do have the personnel there capable of doing that, and if so, what do you define as a healthcare provider? Because I heard you mention it's like a mental health check every 2 weeks.
So James Aranda for the record, thank you for that question. So my intent, or what I believe the intent of this bill was, is to have someone that is a qualified health professional. It doesn't necessarily mean mental health professional, but it's someone that's qualified in behavior, or could be a nurse that's been trained in behavior issues or mental health. They are in the housing units every single day. We do medical prescription distribution of meds, whether it's in these segregation units. We do diabetic medications. They are in the units every day. What it's requiring, which I believe is the intent, is to make sure they look at every cell inside the cells to make sure that there's no problems that they see, that the individual's not, naked on the floor, not appearing to be unconscious. It's not an evaluation. It's just basically looking at this individual, make sure there's no concerns.
So that's what I needed to hear, because you mentioned the mental health evaluation like every 2 weeks. That's different than somebody, a healthcare provider. That could be a nurse's aide. It could be just somebody that's dispensing medications. It's somebody that just does a blood pressure check, those kind of, somebody's peeking in there, making sure that, but not doing a mental health evaluation on them daily. Is that what I'm reading?
James Renda, for the record, that's how I read it as well. Yes, correct.
Okay. And so do you have a mental health plan on all inmates that are admitted to your facilities? Do you do a screening for mental health issues and then make sure you have a mental health plan for treatment and care? As you mentioned, just throwing them in a cell, it's the worst thing that you can happen with that. And so I'm just wondering, does each inmate then get a mental health evaluation and a plan?
James Renner, for the record, thank you for that question. We have different criteria, so it's not as simple as that. We do evaluate every offender that comes into the institutions for medical and mental health needs. Those that we identify under seriously mentally ill are not to be placed in segregation in this status. There can be a mental health professional that says they need to be secured in their cell 24 hours a day for a certain purpose of whether it's the person's homicidal or whatever it could be. That's a mental health decision, not a custody decision. So there's different pieces to this, whether their mental health needs are minor or whether they're serious, they still are evaluated for those needs. The needs of the individual and the type of clinician intervention that is needed is based on how serious level of the need. Those with seriously mentally ill have a significant amount of evaluations done periodically, where those that have minor needs for mental health needs are not. And I don't want those individuals to be forgotten, so they still can be placed in segregation with minor needs, but minor needs can become problematic later, whether it's they're missing their medications, whether their type of mental health illness is developing into something else or getting worse. I just wanted to make sure that there's somebody checking on those individuals, even if they're not required to have evaluations, if that makes sense.
One more follow-up, Madam Chair, if it's okay. Since we're on the mental health pathway here, just wondering, when you recognize that they need treatment not available in your facility, are you having, do you have adequate access to mental health beds when you need to remove that person from your facility?
James Renda, for the record. So when you're talking about adequate mental health beds, we create units to do what we need them to do. So if we do not, first of all, you won't find a seriously mentally ill individual into segregation units, but if they're mental health needs get more extensive, even though they were in the segregation units, they will be moved to another facility that has it, whether it's Carson City or Indian Springs. When we run out of certain beds for certain classifications, we do expand. So if we need more mental health beds, we do have them. We just expand into other units and we create those units.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions.
Thank you very much. All
Madam-
right. Yes, go ahead, Senator.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I just wanted, just for clarification, Senator Spearman, for the record, when Director Zrenda got here in 2017, I think it was, 2016, and I chaired Health and Human Services, he got here and there were several inmates who were classified as severely mentally ill and had been in isolation for several years. And so when I heard that as part of his presentation, we worked together on the bill that we presented, that we got passed in 2017. And as I said, it's a carryover. And so what we're doing now is we're strengthening those safety nets, if you will, because I think those persons had been in isolation for, what, 5 or 6 years?
Even more.
Yeah, 20 years. So.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just really quick, so you're familiar with the audit that was done in 2019 by, I think it was Division of Finance. It was on, let me read it exactly. It was the State of Nevada Governor's Finance Office Division of Audits, and it was on NDOC Mental Health Services. So it sounds like this bill will deal with some of it, but it said that there were no performance measures for mental health services to monitor the success of the programs that currently are in place. I know you weren't there in 21, or you weren't there in 21, and now you're back in 23. So has that been remedied?
It's James Arenda for the record, so I'm not aware of this audit. All I'm aware of is that coming back into this agency, our mental health staffing was pretty much depleted. I'm concerned that the mental health needs are, even though we meet the minimum needs, it's not enough for our offenders to get them back on track. The mental health services has their own goals, which is to stabilize and to look for programs that are evidence-based to be able to change behaviors, but it's not actually what I would think is enough for what our offenders are looking for, that they need before they get out in the community.
Thank you for that. So it might be of interest for you to review it because it's November 7th, 2019. And in this audit, it also stated that there were no relationships with Northern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services or Southern Nevada Adult Mental Health Services, that upon release, there was no plan or community partners that were engaged in the work to give resources and support for inmates who had mental illness and to support them to reintegrate in communities. And this was in the audit. So it sounds like those pieces as well need to be managed, because it doesn't matter if the support on the outside, it doesn't exist. And it matters if there's a metric and data that is going to support that the mental health program currently in existence works.
Okay, statement. Thank you. Any additional questions or statements from anyone? All righty. Thank you very much all for your time, and we'll go to those in support here in Carson City. Las Vegas, seeing none, we'll go straight to the phone lines. BPS, when you're ready.
To testify in support of Senate Bill 307, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is John Piro from the Clark County Public Defender's Office. I'd like to thank Senator Spearman for bringing this bill forward and continuing to work on this issue, as well as Mr. Shepak and Director Zarenda. I feel this is an important bill, and as Director Zarenda has said, that the mental health of the people while they're in is going to directly affect their behavior when they come out, and so I urge passage of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional callers in support.
Hello, my name is Betty Guess, and I'm a core volunteer and activist with Return Strong. I'm also part of an impacted family. I have a son who's incarcerated. Today, I'm here on behalf of the membership of our organization to give our collective statement on this bill. First, we support SB 307. In our work, we spend a lot of time talking to people in solitary and reading letters about the horrors of this practice. For our organization, we consider solitary anyone spending 22 or more hours a day in isolation. While this bill doesn't define it exactly the same way, it is an important and significant step in the right direction to restrict the use of solitary confinement. In recent years, as people, we have begun to understand the horrors of what happens to people in solitary confinement physically, emotionally, and psychologically. It is torture. Before doing this work, I used to think that solitary was saved for the worst of the worst, people who had no redeeming qualities as human beings. Along this journey, I have learned a few things. First, two things can always be true. You can have committed a crime, maybe even a horrific crime that requires accountability, and you can also have redeeming qualities and a story worth redeeming. Second, solitary confinement isn't for the worst of the worst. It's for the person who stole a packet of butter from the chow hall. It's also for the person who has too much mail or property in their cell. It's for the person who talked back to a CO. It's for women who are waiting for a class to move from a behavioral modification unit back to general population. It's for having hobby craft items without approval or permission. Right here in Nevada, we use isolation, solitary confinement excessively, and we are doing harm to people who are coming home to our communities. Solitary is torture. Is it possible to calculate torture? Can you put a number on unimaginable suffering? Is there a way to accurately count the human cost of a system designed to cause harm? No, there is not. Return Strong and our membership is in full support of SB 307 and thank Senator Spearman for bringing this critically important legislation and for the committee for hearing it. Please help us in the fight for humanity and creating a world that ends torture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Hello, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Amber Falgout, AMBER-FALGOUT, and I am the Northern Nevada Manager with Battleborn Progress. I am calling to show our support for SB 307 today. Investing in our prison system and improving the policies that offenders are beholden to is an appropriate use of our money and resources. While prison used to be thought of as a rehabilitation, in practice it is completely the opposite. For example, spending resources on health and wellness checks for offenders in solitary confinement is truly the least we can do to ensure offenders are not being further harmed by this practice. That is why we urge your support of SB 307 because it is a positive step forward. Thank you for your time and thank the sponsor for bringing this bill. Good morning. My name is Jody Hocking, JODIHOCKING, and I actually today am providing testimony from one of somebody that is incarcerated actually at Ely State Prison who asked us to provide their testimony on the effects of solitary confinement. They gave permission and then asked for their words to
benefit the ending of the practice of a system using solitary confinement to break spirits, destroy minds, and rob people of their sanity. Solitary confinement can lead to the deprivation of sanity for sure. I was in a cell for 23 to 24 hours a day. After only a few months, I cut off everyone that I knew, family, friends, lawyers, and even became unresponsive to prison staff. I crawled into myself. Isolation can do this. I quit showering, shaving, and caring about any hygiene, including brushing my teeth. Nothing mattered anymore. I lost all track of time. And all the psychologist cared about was offering a path to pills or if I was feeling suicidal. Most definitely a play that would permit the confiscation of the rest of my clothes and leave me naked in the freezing cell. I wasn't interested. Each passing day pushed me deeper and deeper into the abysmal pit. When you're on the brink of sanity leaving you, there's no true self-awareness to what's happening. Autopilot rules the days as they arrive. I was vulnerable beyond measure. Agonizingly paranoid is an understatement to what I became. Simplicity, the effects of solitary confinement, psychological tale are real, and they generally last for a lifetime, especially when the effects are slowly and constantly being fed the conditions that created them. I am obviously with Return Strong. Also, we are here in support of SB 307 and are so very thankful for the people for Senator Spearman and everyone else that's heard this bill. I think the thing that I want us to remember is that the vast majority of people that are going through these experiences deal with very similar issues, and they are coming home. They will be in our families, in our homes, in our communities, in our jobs, and taking any and all steps possible to end this practice or restrict this practice, we're in full support of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in support of SB 307, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good morning again, Chair and members of the committee. This is Catherine Nielsen again, but today I'm actually going to be speaking not on behalf of the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities, but rather myself and the council as well. I used to be a psychiatric caseworker in Fallon, Nevada for the rural clinics, and my experience working with those individuals has placed an extreme strain on my heart, seeing the quality of mental health care available in Nevada, and our council recognizes the challenges that policymakers and administrators face in addressing the current needs of the mental health care in Nevada, and specifically the mental health care of our incarcerated persons. Currently available treatment options in Nevada are not sufficient to serve the current needs of this community. Increased access to mental health care services is necessary to meet all of the needs of the individuals in this state, and particularly those with mental health conditions and those that are in our prison systems with the highest needs. Most of these individuals will be released into society, and we owe it to them to provide these services that will allow them to be rehabilitated in what they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Chair. All right, Chair, there are no additional callers to provide support testimony.
Thank you very much. Then we'll go to opposition here in Carson City, Las Vegas. On the phone lines, BPS when you're ready.
To testify in opposition of SB 307, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers wishing to testify in opposition.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral here in Carson City, Las Vegas, and phone lines, please.
To testify in neutral to Senate Bill 307, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers to testify in neutral.
Thank you very much. Closing remarks, Senator Spearman. All right, with that, I will close Senate Bill 307, and we will open the hearing on Senate Bill 88. Please go ahead when you're ready, Assemblyman.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Howard Watts, representing Assembly District 15. Glad to present SB 88 for your consideration today. SB 88 would task the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Natural Resources to conduct a study during the next interim of agencies that regulate natural resources. There is one fiscal note from LCB. It is zero. It said that the amount cannot be determined. Just to provide a little bit of background, this was a recommendation that came from the last interim standing committee on natural resources, and the vision and intent behind this bill. In the last interim, we were actually tasked with conducting a study of water conservation and related issues. So that was built into the work plan that was brought before the Legislative Commission to approve essentially kind of the budget for that interim committee's meeting schedule. And that is exactly what's envisioned here. So this would not require additional staffing or any sort of contract resources or additional resources to conduct this. What it would do is ensure that this is kind of an item that has to be on the agenda for the next interim. And so there would be some meeting time dedicated to that. It'd be put forward in a work plan that would be presented when the interim committees are stood up by Legislative Commission for the next interim. So, again, while there will be some time dedicated to it, I don't see this as expanding the financial resources that would be required to operate this joint interim standing committee during the next interim. And I'll glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Assemblyman. I think this has Senator Harris's name written all over it. So any questions, Senator Harris? Because it says study.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will there never be an end to the studies?
Howard Watts for the record. Unfortunately, no.
Thank you for that succinct answer.
That's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Any additional questions? I mean, we got to have a little humor around here. It's way too serious in here. Senator Titus, please go ahead.
So to kind of extend what my colleague just asked about end of studies, I too am not a big fan of studies, but I would like to at least to know what the purpose of these studies. So all it says is that you're going to examine the composition, mission, and scope. So you're just going to look at what their charges are, and then what are you going to do with that information? Is the purpose then to understand whether they're functioning at the level they're supposed to, whether they need to be in existence or not, whether we need to change the scope? I mean, what's the ultimate goal of this?
Thank you very much for that question, Senator Titus. Howard Watts for the record. It's a great question, and essentially where this has come from. Not to call out Senator Goycochea, but he's brought forward legislation related to certain agencies that regulate natural resources, particularly wildlife and the makeup of that. Other legislators have brought forward ideas to reform the makeup of and mission of the Board of Wildlife Commissioners. I brought legislation in the last session related to the regulation of mining and how that's organized. And so one of the things that I think came out of that is, without saying anything positive or negative about any of those individual ideas, ultimately what that has us doing is just talking about those entities in the context of that particular bill, of that particular proposal. We have the Sunset subcommittee that looks at, are they meeting their statutory responsibilities. It doesn't look at these bodies to say, is the makeup representative of all the different interests? Does the mission and scope still make sense given things changing over time? And so that's what this bill is hoping to do, is actually take a step back from somebody bringing forward their idea of how to fix it and actually use that interim process to have, for example, NCSL come and share information about, here's how some of these things are structured and handled in other states, particularly across the region. And then to invite all groups to come forward and present their ideas and be able to have a back and forth with the members of that joint interim standing committee on kind of concepts without it being a full-on bill hearing where it's essentially you have to choose sides. Are you supportive of this or in opposition to this? My hope is that hopefully either we can come up with some ideas to make some modifications that have some more consensus and have been vetted a little bit more prior to the next session. And that if nothing comes forward, at least there's been an open forum to bring forward those ideas and discuss them so that there's maybe not as much of a rush to just put ideas on the table and try and get them through during the regular legislative session. So that's the hope. And again, this could be conducted anyway, but since we've had some of these ongoing issues and bills being brought forward, the idea was to ensure that this is part of the discussion during the interim for this specific committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Gokachia, are you here or in Ely?
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I'm just kind of concerned about, we've got DCNR all, and technically, I believe the Mineral Resources and Environmental Commission are housed under them. That's pretty broad. I thought maybe if we could help them a little bit and help us, maybe look at NDF or some of those departments in there more, and for DCNR just to bring a presentation before an interim committee meeting, it's going to be a long day.
Thank you. Howard Watts for the record. I appreciate that. I didn't want it to be so limited that that if something else came up that it seemed like that was off the table. So that's why it is overall broad, but it does call out the Board of Wildlife Commissioners, which again, we know that there's been ongoing discussion about. So I expect that's going to be on there at a minimum. Commission on Mineral Resources, again, there's been a conversation about that over the years. So I think that's another one that's appropriate to have out there. Yeah, DCNR is in there, but and again, there's a lot that's within that, but just want to make sure that that's kind of out there as an option. To me, really, the Board of Wildlife Commissioners, Mineral Resources and Mining Regulation, and then the State Environmental Commission as that body that's doing the kind of the rulemaking and regulatory decision making related to NDEP. Those are the key ones, and so that is really kind of the intent. We just didn't want it to be too narrow, where it seemed like if somebody wanted to bring up another idea for consideration, that would somehow be off the table. But appreciate the comments. And
Madam Chair, if I may, and I thank you. And of course, I've been beating the hell out of NDF this session, so make sure they're on the list and let's visit them.
Howard Watts for the record. I appreciate that. And again, since NDF is within DCNR, that this allows that someone can say, let's put that on the table for discussion, and that's a discussion that we can have. And again, as you and I both know, DWR is also a rulemaking entity. They don't have a board like some of these other entities do. So that's why we wanted to just have the option out there. If somebody wants to bring up some another entity and talk about how they're structured and what they're doing, that the opportunity would be there. And I expect probably in the hopefully you and I will both be on that interim committee, and I expect during that first meeting there will be when people are soliciting ideas, both from members of the community and members of that committee, there'll be an opportunity to put those things forward and set the agenda for that long meeting day somewhere.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any additional questions from the committee? All right. Thank you, Assemblyman. We will go to those in support of Senate Bill 88. And please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders, and I'm the Policy Director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, here in support of Senate Bill 88. First, I want to thank Assemblyman Watts for leading a successful last interim and bringing forward many great bills from those conversations for you this session. It's time that we as a state take a holistic look at how we manage and regulate natural resources in Nevada. As the driest state in the nation, we must ensure we are protecting our limited water supply. And as a site for many extractive industries, we must ensure that we are placing people and planet first. We believe this will be an effective use of the interim committee's time, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Thank you,
please.
Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christy Cabrera-Georgeson. I'm the Deputy Director of the Nevada Conservation League, and we're here in support of SB 88. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. I'm BB Adams, BEBEADAMS, representing Friends of Nevada Wildlife, and we are in support of this bill, and we appreciate the sponsor bringing it up, and we appreciate you hearing it this morning. Thank you so much.
Good morning, Madam Chair. My name is Rebecca Goff, and I'm the Nevada State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. On behalf of our Nevada members and on those of the Humane Society Wildlife Trust, we are here in support of SB 88. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no additional in support here in Carson City, Las Vegas, we'll go to BPS. Please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to testify in support of SB 88, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Chair Dondero Loop and members of the committee, my name is Barry Levinson, a volunteer member of Sierra Club's Legislative Committee. On behalf of the Sierra Club and our more than 30,000 members and supporters, I'm speaking in support of Bill SB 88. We urge you to support this bill because it's time to take a more detailed, extensive, holistic look at all of these environmental agencies in terms of how we manage natural resources, protect our limited water supplies, and ensure that we are not putting extractive, moneyed interest over protecting our environment for all Nevadans. A study would allow for a more thorough examination of these agencies and allow various interest groups to meet and discuss other states' trends and regulatory structures. For these reasons, we urge you to support SB 88. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any more callers in support? Oh,
That concludes callers to testify in support at this time.
thank you very much. Las Vegas, go ahead, please.
Good morning. This is Susan Proffitt, Proffitt, and I'm the Vice President of the Nevada Republican Club. I think this bill is very interesting, and I hope you pass it. I would like to suggest that when you do this study, that you also have analysis done on how you can combine some of these agencies that are doing redundant type works and put them under one umbrella so that we can save money. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for working on this.
Thank you very much. All right, we will go to opposition here in Carson City, in Las Vegas. On the phone lines, BPS, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer testimony in opposition to SB 88, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers to offer opposition testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral here in Carson City, Las Vegas, and on the phone lines, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to offer neutral testimony to SB 88, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. There are no callers wishing to offer neutral testimony at this time.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll close closing remarks, Assemblyman Watts. Okay. Then we'll close the hearing on Senate Bill 88, and we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 364. Senator Krasner, when you're ready. And welcome to the table, Speaker Segarra. Welcome to Finance. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Dondero Loop and members of the esteemed Senate Finance Committee. It's an honor to be here before you today, and I appreciate you allowing me to have this time. I am Senator Lisa Krasner, proudly representing State Senate District 16. I am here today to remove the fiscal note from SB 364, and beside me is former Speaker of the Assembly, John O. Segura. So this started as a very simple bill, SB 364, and I think when I said it was a simple bill, that's what cursed it.
You're learning.
Yeah. The bill, SB 364, just makes changes in regards to Native American Indian, those remains that are found that are thought to be Native American Indians remains. And I was told that in the last 10 years, the amount of Native American Indian remains that have been found is one time in 10 years. So it doesn't happen that much. So that's why I thought it was going to be an easy bill. Okay, so again, that's what cursed it. So there is a brand new amendment just hot off the press, and if you should have it in your hand. If you don't, I sent it to your personal emails as well. And basically, it just says Section 1, Sub C. The work of consulting with the tribes will be done by the Nevada Indian Commission. The Department of Conservation and Natural Resources will do the regulations without further consultation. And then Section 3, if you look down towards the bottom there, where it says not later than December 31, 2023, the Office of Historic Preservation of the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources shall submit to LCB. So the word adopt is struck and inserted. The only change in Section 3, submit to LCB. Regulations to carry out the provisions of NRS 383.150 to 383.440 inclusive, and Section 1 of this Act as required pursuant to NRS 383.440 as amended by Section 2 of this Act. That all remains the same. So those are the only changes, and I hope you all have this. Okay, good. And that's it. The whole thing was that when remains that are found that are thought to be Native American Indians, the sheriff goes out. This is their current practice. This just puts it into statute. But it would allow a member of the tribes to just go out and say a prayer over the remains. That's it. It's called repatriation. So I thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Senator Gokachia, are you up? Okay. Anybody down on this end? Speaker, you got to say something. You're at the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Oseguera for the record. I learned very early, if it looks like it's going your way, keep your mouth shut.
Good job. I was taught that by a very wise speaker along the way. So thank you very much. All right, with that, we will, Ms. Montu, do you have anything you need to say? Okay, just checking. All right, thank you very much. And with that, we'll let you step back and we'll go to support for Senate Bill 364. Please come forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Alex Tanchak with Silver State Government Relations, representing the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. We are here in support of the bill. Thank you very much for hearing it.
Thank you very much. Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I should have said it while I had the chance. John Oseguera with Strategy 360, in this instance representing the Reno Sparks Indian Colony and the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe, in support of the bill.
Thank you very much. You got 2 times at the table. Additional support here in Carson City? Director? Nothing? Okay, you got nothing? It's okay. Go ahead, please, in Las Vegas.
Good morning. Susan Proffitt, Vice President of Nevada Republican Club. I think this is a very simple bill, and I would like to thank you for being so considerate of our Indian neighbors. This sounds like a no-brainer to me. Please pass it, and have a good day.
Thank you very much. Seeing nobody else in Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone lines. When you're ready, BPS.
Chair, the public line is open and working, but there are no callers to testify.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to opposition here in Carson City. Seeing none, Las Vegas, we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, when you're ready.
Chair, there are still no callers to offer testimony.
Thank you very much. We'll go to neutral here in Carson City. Director, welcome. Good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Settlemeyer, Director, Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. Just wanted to confirm that this amendment, if passed as indicated, would remove our fiscal note. And we appreciate working with the sponsor and with the former speaker on trying to resolve any concerns that we previously had that we no longer have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you. And we'll go to Las Vegas. Seeing none, and we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, when you're ready.
Chair, there are still no callers to offer testimony.
Thank you very much. So with that, closing remarks, Senator. Okey doke. All righty. With that, we'll close Senate Bill 364. And that is the end of our agenda for now. There's the key words, for now, which means we will reconvene at some point. So stay tuned, and we are in recess.